In this video, we're going to cover the things you need to know when moving to Seattle. I'm Christian Harris, the founder of the C-Town real estate team here in Seattle. I work, live, and play right here in Seattle and have for many years. So if you want to know more about living your best life in Seattle, make sure to subscribe and hit that bell so that you will be notified when we release new videos each week. And if you have any questions or have any real estate needs, make sure to give me a call at the number below, and you can find any additional details in the description. So let's get into this. So today I'm going to do this video a little differently. Normally, I'm monologuing about a particular topic, but today I thought it would make sense to have on a guest since I've lived here in Seattle for so long. Really felt like it would be inauthentic if I told you the things that you needed to know before moving here, since I moved here like 30 years ago. So today I am joined by one of my awesome real estate agents on my team, Haley Derge, who you moved here, what year did you move here?
2019, right before the pandemic.
Okay, so unusual timing, so I don't know if that's significantly altered kind of what your experience would be. So you moved here from the Midwest, is that right?
Yeah, from Wisconsin, from Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Okay, so I figured it'd be good to just kind of hear your experience on moving to Seattle, what you wish you had known, and that sort of thing. So I'd imagine that'd be a pretty drastic lifestyle change. You're moving from Wisconsin to kind of an urban center like Seattle. I mean, what do you like most about moving here?
Yeah, I absolutely love Seattle, and I'm super happy here and glad I made the move. I moved to West Seattle as my first stop in Alki Beach area, and that was a completely different way of living because I had the water 50 steps from my door and loved going down to the beach every day and seeing the mountains, and was super grounding and different. Then the bridge broke and I was forced to move to a different part of Seattle just based off of my job. I'm a yoga teacher, and so driving around was a bit hectic in the traffic. And so
Sorry, real quick, when you say the bridge, you mean the West Seattle Bridge?
The West Seattle Bridge.
Right. Which, for people who aren't in the area, that's the primary way to get in and out of West Seattle.
Yeah, so after the bridge broke, I moved to the north side to Green Lake area, which is above the Fremont area and around Ballard. And so I've had very different experiences in both areas, and I particularly miss Alki Beach and just being really close to nature. And that's one of my favorite things about living in Seattle is all of the green spaces. I was very surprised at how many parks and just places to explore. Even an hour away from the city, it feels like you're in a completely different world. So that was one of my very surprising things about moving to Seattle, was the amount of outdoor space and the contrast between the North Cascades and then going to the Olympics, which is really close to the Pacific Ocean, and having access to all of that. So I would say my most surprising thing was how much time I spend outside compared to in the Midwest. And the other thing that really surprised me, I, from the Midwest, thought I was moving to California, I think, or like sunny California, because I packed all my shorts and summer dresses, and I can honestly say I've maybe worn them once. Okay. Since moving here. I definitely still wear long johns in the summer. Like, it's very chilly here, and I've learned to love it. You really just dress for the weather and have extra layers, and I feel like it's made me a little bit more hardy. And it's sunny here more than I expected. Like, it's not like the beach sunny where I'm planning to go out in my swimsuit, but it is enough to not think that this place is always rainy. Like, I'm very surprised at how much sun we get. And I think that's one of our best kept secrets is that we do get more sun than people say. But I do remember when I first moved here that I was pretty pouty about how much it rained, and my roommate always turned it around and said, you can't complain about how much it rains because of how green it is all the time. And so I always remind myself whenever I get down about how much rain there is, that there's actually a lot of green, and that feels like growth and can kind of propel you forward just like the sun would.
Okay.
So those are probably my two like exciting things and surprising things that I learned about Seattle.
Okay, nice. Do you find that it's like a 1-for-1 trade for rain for what you're used to with snow? Or not? Maybe didn't snow quite as much back where you're from.
We've lost a lot of our snow in the Midwest over the years, even just talking to my parents now. But it definitely is way colder in the Midwest. I've been talking to my parents and it's like below zero and like super chilly. Sure. So I would take the 50-degree, 40-degree like days any day over like a 4-degree day. So
okay, so kind of a trade for the more extreme heat and cold and humidity in the Midwest where you're from versus the more moderate, doesn't get real hot, doesn't get real cold, it's a little wet, but the summers are to die for, right? Those 3 months of
I don't want to talk about those.
What's that?
I feel like if people knew how good the summer days are, that the sun stays out till 10 p.m., we would have so many people over here.
Yeah, don't tell people how awesome the summers are here. Okay. So I appreciate you kind of going over some of those, highlights of what you like best, kind of outdoors, the greenery, the mild weather. What have you found that you like the least about moving to Seattle?
The traffic is pretty intense, and I am not used to that. I lived in Milwaukee where you could get from one side of the city to the other in 15 minutes at any point of the day. And so that was a huge shift for me to count in the time that it takes to get somewhere. Before the pandemic, was teaching at various locations downtown, and trying to park downtown and get there on time was always a very hard game to play. And I also felt really like pressured with the West Seattle Bridge closing. So that was quite a sad thing that happened. And I think they're opening it up this summer. So I know that'll revolutionize like the connection between West Seattle and Seattle.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. It's, I guess living here so long, I just got used to traffic being bad and it taking 20 minutes to get anywhere, and that's a close drive. You have to get the other side of Seattle, 45 minutes, Well, that's definitely good. I think during the pandemic, it got a little spoiled because, so many people were working remotely, like the traffic was kind of normal and there was very little people on the street. So it seems like it's kind of gotten back to regular traffic congestion, but just leave yourself enough time to get places and you won't be stressed and doesn't matter. So
totally.
Yeah, for sure.
Another thing that I was super surprised by, which I'm sure people can relate to this when you move to a city, is everything costs way more. And whenever I have my family come and visit, they have their jaws on the ground of how much I'm paying for gas and how expensive a box of cereal is and various items like that. And it's caused me to be extra thrifty, and we have really awesome options. I completely miss Aldi's, which if you're from the Midwest, you know exactly what grocery store that is. Hopefully they have really cheap things. And we have Grocery Outlet here in Seattle, which I really love. They have like discounted items, and there are ways to save money. You just kind of have to think through things a little bit more and cook at home with friends instead of going out for dinner. Dinners are expensive, but the restaurants are amazing here, and there's so many options across the International District, and down by the water on Alki is always fun to go out and visit. So there's ways to save. You just have to be patient.
Sure. No, that makes sense. It's kind of get used to spending a lot of money, whenever I travel to the South or Midwest to visit family. I definitely noticed I'm like, gas is under $3 a gallon. This is amazing. Yeah, but then here it's pretty pricey. But then you have kind of that trade-off. While food and stuff's expensive, you've got so many options. I mean, like whatever you want, you know, and a lot of times traveling to other places, like you're like, hey, I love Thai food, and my friends be like, I've never had Thai food. There's no Thai food restaurant. I'm like, how do you survive? Or pho or something, you know, just because there's so much international influence here, you can get pretty much anything, and it's usually pretty amazing.
Yeah, and another part of that is using public transit. We have an amazing public transit system that can get you across the city, and in the Midwest, we don't have that at all. Yeah. And so you actually have to drive everywhere. So I value the fact that I can jump on a train and not have to drive myself, and like use that time to read or catch up on emails and stuff like that. So there are definitely trade-offs and ways to save money. Rent is way more than I was ever paying in the Midwest, but I also walk out and see mountains on all sides of me and water everywhere. And for me, that brings me so much joy and higher standards of living. So
sure. No, that makes sense. With Seattle proper is pretty condensed, and so things are pretty close. So public transportation works well. I know, you know, in the Midwest and South, you know, things tend to be, you know, pretty spread out. So I mean, you know, big cities like, you know, Chicago, New York, and stuff obviously have decent public transportation, but yeah, most areas you need a vehicle. You can definitely get away with not having a vehicle here if you want to save some money, because you know we've got, you know, two you know, people in the family that work, and so we both have cars, you know, and whatnot, and that's pretty pricey. If we were able to cut out both of those, you'd be able to save, you know, on insurance and gas and, you know, all the expenses that come with a car. Your parking you won't have to worry about, which depending on where in Seattle you live, parking can be a challenge because garages and driveways are fairly rare.
Something that I didn't kind of prepare for was the increase in registration fees for your vehicle, like a lot higher than the Midwest. I remember calling my dad right after like standing in line, and I'm like, it was this much to register my vehicle, and he freaked out. But it definitely pays off in the long run of like having nicer roads and structures and bridges and all of that kind of thing. But one other part of this is that we don't pay income taxes in Washington, and you get a lot more of your paycheck every month. And I think that really helps to pay for the stuff that you want and support the businesses that you want. We have so many local businesses, and to have freedom to support those and make sure that they stay a part of our community is it seems like it falls more on our responsibility. So
sure. That makes sense.
Love that.
Yeah. Well, in that vein, because there's so many small businesses, a lot of there's so many communities in Seattle, and they have, you know, so much individual character, you know, as opposed to maybe you get a little further out in the suburbs and you get a lot more chains, and they feel a lot more, you know, strip mall and a lot more generic, you know, while, you know, there's lots of options there, you know, there's definitely more character, you know, kind of in the city where you might have more independent restaurants and options and shops and stuff. Kind of under your umbrella of, you know, the registration being more expensive and we don't have income tax, I'd say the general umbrella there would be that taxes tend to be fairly high, which is pretty consistent with, you know, the more progressive places, the more services they provide, so you need more taxes to pay for it. So in contrast, you've got like a state like Oregon that doesn't have sales tax but does have income tax, and we're the other way around. We've got sales tax but no income tax.
Yeah, I am grateful for living in a place that does have so many services and feel like I'm supported and can go to the government if I need help in any way. Like, there's so many programs. Something that I really wanted to do in West Seattle that I did a chance because of COVID is the government puts on classes for like pottery down at this little like pottery shop in on Alki Beach, and you get to like do pottery and look at the water and the mountains, and find that awesome that there's so many classes for adults and children put on by the city. I think that's a great way to get involved and to meet new people, and something around every video that I see is always like the Seattle freeze is a real thing, and I think you can move anywhere and feel the freeze. It's not just here.
What do you mean by Seattle freeze for people who aren't from here?
The Seattle freeze is where the locals don't seem to want to like communicate and meet new people, and I have found that that's entirely not true.
Okay.
I am also really outgoing and am not afraid to strike up a conversation. So I've found the exact opposite experience, especially in West Seattle, Alki area. That felt so neighborly. Like I felt like I moved into a big family that lived on this area. And I remember during the start of the pandemic, I was trading my like sourdough bread that I was making for paddleboard time at my neighbors. Like I would just give them a loaf of bread to like take their paddleboard out. And so people are so into like making deals like that and helping you. There are so many times where I've written on different community pages on Facebook just saying, hey, I have this problem. Anyone know a solution, or like know someone that can help me? And I'll have like 45 comments or 45 messages just being like, hey, I see you. If you need help, like reach out. And I don't know if that would have happened in the Midwest or like in other areas of the world. Like I think there can be a freeze or like that feeling that I don't belong here or don't know anyone here. And you can find that anywhere, but
sure.
Asking for help, definitely just reach out and kind of break that barrier for yourself. And that was something that helped me a lot when I first moved here. Was I knew I was coming to a new place. I knew I didn't know anyone, and I just dove in, and I'm so grateful I did, because 8 months later the pandemic started and it was absolutely impossible to meet anyone. So
right. So it sounds like if you're willing to put yourself out there, you'll find a community. If you're going to keep to yourself, people may not reach out to you. So maybe that works out for introverts that don't want to interact, but if you do, you'll find a networking community.
Yeah, and the part about the classes, it's just like there's so many cool people here. Like you could do stained glass, you could do diving in the Sound, you could do hiking. Like there are so many groups on Facebook and in the area that if you're interested in literally anything, if you have a dog, like there's dog parks, like there are ways to meet, and I always find that people want to strike up a conversation.
Sure. Yeah, no, Seattle's definitely known for being very pet friendly. I think the numbers, they actually have more pets than kids. I think there's more dogs in Seattle than there are kids, which is not surprising. I mean, you could definitely find your kid friendly neighborhoods and stuff, but they love their animals here. What have you? So there's also the reputation that the real Seattleites from the visitors by whether or not they use an umbrella. Have you found that to be true? Do you use an umbrella and get weird looks when it's raining?
I never use an umbrella, and I honestly rarely see anyone else use an umbrella. Yeah. But I did just have this conversation with a friend, and they were like, I use an umbrella every time. They are from the Midwest. So I think it can swing both ways. And I am a huge backpacker and love to be outdoors, so the rain doesn't really bother me, and I kind of like to embrace it and challenge myself. So
sure, no, that makes sense. Well, and the rain here, to be fair, tends to be more of a drizzle than like a downpour. I mean, in most of the country, when it rains, like it rains, you're gonna get wet.
Totally.
Yeah. I think we kind of covered a good ground here on, things that you need to know when you move to Seattle. Is there anything else you kind of wanted to cover that would be helpful for anyone who's planning on moving to the area? I mean, other than contacting our real estate team for the real estate needs, of course.
Of course. I guess something along the real estate lines is I find that I've lived in various areas around Seattle, and truly each area has such a different characteristics and feel and groove, and I don't think I would have figured that out had I not moved around. Like I think moving here, if you find that you've grounded in a spot and it just doesn't feel right, I would urge you to try a different area. There's so many different neighborhoods, and You could get help learning about them by contacting like a real estate agent and our team and just learn more. Otherwise, it might take you a few years before you live in different areas to like understand what the feel is. And I think that's a really valuable knowledge that we can give our guests and our friends and people who are moving to the area, because yeah, being patient with what area you find is really important. And I think it can sway like the feel you have for Seattle and what you're looking for. So
sure, no, that makes a lot of sense. I'm glad you brought that up. You know, I've definitely had clients that have moved in, you know, relocated from different areas. You know, some of them from like, you know, DC or San Francisco, like they know what they want. They you know, end up buying a house in Seattle. But I've had others that, you know, decide to rent, and they rented over in Redmond, and they're like, this isn't really the feel I'm going for, you know, and they're glad they rented for 6 months and then got to know the area before deciding where they wanted to buy. So that can definitely be a wise choice. So, yeah. Excellent. Well, Haley, I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your experience with me. It's I think the video is much more interesting and informative than it would have been if I was just trying to make up stuff, trying to think about what it would be like to move here and what people needed to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if our listeners, you know, our viewers, if you have found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up and leave a comment below. That helps other people to find the video and tells YouTube algorithm that this video is good. It should be shared. So thank you very much, and we'll catch you on the next video.
All right. See you later.